Hi everybody. My name is Trevor Wofford. I got second at our Yu-Gi-Oh! Bros tourney after going undefeated in Swiss. So my overall record, let's see, I would have done 11, B8, one, an additional one. So I went 10-1. So I only lost in the final. Happens. But I played Branded Despia, and I loved it. It was just such a fun deck. It feels like a bunch of fun concepts put together into one deck that I've loved over the years, and it's really fun. So we can hop in. So half the namesake of the deck is Despia, and so we'll get all those real quick. So we run 3 Aliber, which Aliber is cracked full of effects. 3 Tragedy. Some people are doing 2. I personally liked 3, and I can explain why in a second. And then you play 2 one-ofs, which are Dramaturge and Adlib. Adlib is what makes this deck go from linear to crazy. And I will explain how that works when we get to the extra. But essentially this is your searcher that is also further negates if it's in your grave and your opponent removes your fusion. So it's it's got, that hidden bonus effect that your opponent most likely kind of forgets about, and then they remove something and then it comes back and negates something. This searches you one of these guys when it's sent to the grave or banished. So if you send it on a fusion summon on your first turn, and on your opponent's turn, you can banish it and it gets its effect. Also, if you you'll see later branded in red to target it, to add it to your hand, and they crow, you still get the effect because it's been banished by a card effect. So you still get a search. So it's kind of nice. And then Adlib I'll talk about. And then Dramaturge, it's not great always. You hardly ever summon it, but you need it sometimes because it's a big body, and it does have an effect like when your opponent special summons a fusion or an extra deck thing, you can negate a card. This card came in clutch exactly once. My opponent summoned Ibli to my side, and I had another monster, and I drew this, and I tribute summon the Ibli and the other thing, and then I could fusion summon again. So pretty good. I don't think I would change these ratios at all. And then we get into the branded portion, which revolves all around Fallen of Albaz. So you run 3 Albaz. Albaz is literally as good a normal summon as Aliber. He can use it to fuse with your opponent's stuff, and hopefully they have stuff that you can fuse with. Albion he can be treated as Albaz, but you never summon this guy, never use him for fusion summons. You go, hey, I'm staking him out. He mills a card, goes back to the bottom, draws a card. He's just a free cycle. And with another card you get later, he becomes like a ton of follow-up. We've got Merc, which is another thing. This can get searched, and this is a monster negate while you have a fusion that lists Fallen of Albaz. It's not always comes up, but if it gets banished, it can search this guy, which is pretty good. I mean, it gets banished, so you plus by getting this, and then you get another draw, and so it's nice. Some people do 3 of this and 2 of the Tragedy. I like it the opposite way because I personally value Despia's over getting this. Some people play Spriggan's Kit. I don't like Kit at all. Kit is like Aliber, that you get to search a spell trap, but you have to put a card back, and I hate that. I don't like it at all, and it's also not a Despia, meaning you can't make fusions with it. The last couple monsters are 3 Gem Chain. This searches you Fright for Patchwork, and that's the only target. And Fright for Patchwork, every time you resolve it, is great. It gives you this and a poly. Last monster is Fairytale Snow. You send this off Branded Fusion, and it's great. This is another weird negate, or weird thing that your opponent can forget about a lot of the time. And you burn through so many cards that a lot of times you have enough for snow, and then you have enough for another snow if they remove the first one somehow. It just helps you in the grind. All right, so that's all those. And so getting on to the spell traps. So starting off with Branded Opening. Branded Opening is a E-Telly and or Rhoda. for the archetype. It also can banish itself from grave to protect stuff. The thing that's great about this is you do have to discard, but its discard is part of the effect. And that triggers both Edge of Chain and Tragedy. So you can plus off the thing you summon. Like, say you summon this, you get, so you discarded one and use this. So you're down 2, you now get this body, it searches, you get a plus. So now you're equal, and then the thing you sent gets you a thing. So you +1. Amazing. +1s are how you win, right? Then we get to the actual insane part of this deck, which is Branded opening. The only time this isn't good is if you open this hand, which I did in the final, and I lost. So, but as long as you don't open that, you win. So it's good. That'll do it. That's the only way that's the only possible way you lose with this deck.
Straight up the worst hand I've ever seen that deck.
And the best part is my opponent not only had one ash, so this gets stopped by ash. That's the only thing that this really loses to. If this resolves, if they don't have ash, you most likely win. And because you just get so much advantage. And if it gets ashed, it's rough, but usually you try to play other stuff. But 3 of this, my opponent had 2 ash. So I mean, what are you gonna do? he would have broken my board anyway. It was hard. I mean, I lost to the champion, so clearly he's a champ. He's gonna win. So that's those 2. There's also Branded Red. Branded Red is really cool. You add back something from grave, and then if you successfully do that, you get to fuse by banishing stuff. That triggers a lot of your Despias to get you more pluses. This lets you summon any fusion that's level 8 or higher, not just Despia stuff, which like stuff like Guardian Chimera, which is crazy. Then the 1-of stuff, you play these 2. I love this card. This card, it never came up today, but this is essentially a searchable poly, and there is a thing. So it reads if a non-fairy fusion leaves, so usually it's like Aliber, you reborn a thing. So say you have like extra deck, Mirror Jade, they clear it. Oh no. They go to battle phase. They clear this. Well, this brings back this. And then you're like, oh no. And then they clear that. And then Aliber comes back. And it's just this like resource loop that just blocks and does a lot of stuff. And it works in reverse too. Like if they clear this, you can bring this back, and then they clear it, and then you get Mirror Jade back again. So really good card. I love this card. And then this card is weird. You would think this card would be a lot better. This card stops your opponent from negating, supposed to stop from negating like Branded Fusion, but it doesn't negate against effects. So a lot of times, if you activate this, and then the Branded Fusion and the Ash, if you can't make a fusion summon, this card is essentially dead because it didn't do anything. But if it resolves and it stays up, you just search every time, each turn that you fusion summon, and it's really, really good for like grind games. So it's really weird. You have to play 1, but it can bait some negate sometimes. It's all right. We play the 3 Patchwork to go with the poly, just put them up, the 2 poly and the 3 chain. Sometimes I'd side out 1, but yeah, this ratio is pretty much fine. Every once in a while, it's a little unfortunate because you've drawn a poly and you have to search both. So sometimes you'll have another chain in deck, but you don't have another poly, so you can't resolve it, but he uses his card fodder. Allure is amazing. You can banish Tragedy, you can banish Merc, and you get a plus. So you draw 2, and then you get an additional plus, so it's really good. Yeah, not much more to say about that. Super Poly is really good also in the deck. Albaz can fuse with a bunch of stuff, mostly link monsters, but like there's a bunch of other stuff. And then Despia is confused with any light or dark. I wish it had happened today, but I played a match one time against Eldritch, and they had Eldritch, they had a Mirror Jade of their own, and like a Despia. And I fused all 3 of their monsters into this guy in the extra deck, Pro Scannion, and it was crazy. So yeah, Super Poly is really good, and they can't respond to it. So yeah, you usually will win if you Super Poly. Just depends. I played 2 talents. I wasn't really playing hand traps in this because Despia's main deck is pretty solid at breaking boards. But you play this, 1, because you're kind of trying to protect yourself against hand traps, and this can function as a go second card. So it's kind of serves both purposes. My 1 copy of Droplets that I own, drew it 1 time, didn't actually get used because my opponent unfortunately had a slight brick, but if he hadn't bricked, it would have won me the game either way. So, you know, you keep it in. It's a good card. Just not in this format as much. The one called by, because you have to play it. I don't think I called by a single card today, but you still have to play it. And then the only hand trap I played in the main, which is 3 imperm, and that is because this card works going second. I had a game where I only my hand was garbage. I had like snow, and then I drew this for 6th card, and I was able to crack the board and win the game. And like if this was an ash, would have done nothing. So I play that one. On to the extra. We played 2 Mayor Jade. This is the heart and soul of the deck. This is what makes the deck crazy. You send a thing that lists Fallen of Albaz. So you've got a couple. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You get 7 potential sends off that. You can only control 1, and you only get 1 send per copy. But that is where the whole deal with the ad-lib that I was talking about earlier comes in, that I wanted to bring up. Ad-lib says if it's used as fusion material, you can target a Despia or a fusion that's in your grave or banished and bring it back. So if, say you use this effect, you can then send this. This will bring it back. You can use its effect again. If you have Branded in red, you can then do it again. I had a turn where I used Mirror Jade effect like 3 times. It was insane. So that's Mirror Jade. Sorry if I'm going a little long, people, but you know, I love the deck. You've got Lubellion and Albion. I played 2 of each. You probably don't need 2 of Lubellion personally. Maybe would do 3 of this. It didn't come up, but I only ever used the 1. You always go through 2. This banishes to summon this guy. This shuffles back banished stuff to summon this guy, essentially. The only difference is this one requires lights, this one requires darks. And the stuff you send off of the guy, essentially they're all the same. They have niche application with fusing Albaz. This is the only way to beat Ad Ignister, but I'm not going to go into that. This gets you a Tri-Brigade, this gets you a fusion spell, and this will get you Fallen of Albaz in the end phase. They all trigger in end phase. Same with this, sorry. This, you also send off Mirror Jade, and this gets you a Branded Spell Trap, which is usually branded in red, and it's amazing. Proscanion, Quartus, Mirror Jade. These are things you fuse off Despias. These are the ones you've probably seen. Every time your opponent activates a card or effect, they take 600. Won me a game, pretty much. My opponent activated a thing that cut their life, and then they just ticked down till 100, and then they couldn't activate cards. So, this you play if you think maybe it's going to be super poly, because if it gets fused off, you can summon your own Albaz from deck and then fuse with their thing. One Guardian Chimera, could maybe run it at 2, but I think 1 is fine. Summon on your opponent's turn, and you non-targeting destroy and draw some cards. Great card. And then the last thing is Branded Despia. This card is good partially as a super poly target, also because it's the only thing that doesn't require like specifically a Despia or a Fallen of Albaz. And you can use it to super poly your own boards to dodge stuff like Imperm or Veiler on certain cards. Great. Side deck. 3 twin. Never came up. Never sided it. We've got 2 Dimension Prison because I was scared. So I played that with cross out. Never sided it in at all. If somebody had it in, it never came up for me, so that was great. The thing I did side in with this was the 3 Ash. I only ever sided in 2, and it worked out fine. I protected a Branded Fusion one time. It's great. Got a red reboot, you gotta respect traps. Pankratops in case you go second, but again, your deck's so good at going second, honestly, that like there's times I didn't side anything in going second, I just played the thing. And the last semi-spice is Necroworld Banshee and Zombie World. You can send Banshee off of Branded Fusion, banish it to activate Zombie World, and there's just certain matchups where that works really well. I made a call going into this where I kind of predicted what people would be playing, and I was like, it is good enough to dedicate 2 spots in the side for. And it came up a couple times. Theoretically good against, Tri-Brigade. They literally can't do anything. It was good against Salad. It was, pretty decent. All in all, I had a great time this tournament. We've been doing it 10 years, and it's been amazing every step of the way. And I couldn't ask for a better group of people to do it with. And shout out to all these boys right here. Everybody was amazing. And yeah, thanks for being here, everybody.
The runner-up, baby, Trevor Wofford. Woo!